Hello, this is Lee. There's some things I want to talk to you about. I've been doing some research, and the more research I do, the more that I learn that John Alite is really some character that seems to be out of a really bad novel. First of all, let's talk about, he was already offered to fight Jimmy Calandra. Jimmy Calandra said to him, okay, listen, I won't box you, but I'll fight you in the MMA fight format if you would accept. So the other day on John Alite's show, John Alite refused, and he called Jimmy Calandra a gnat. That was the exact word. He's a gnat, and all the people attacking me are keyboard warriors. Okay, here's what he doesn't understand. If it wasn't for the internet and keyboard warriors, who would John Alite be? He developed his everything about him has been developed on the internet, basically on YouTube and on stations, on podcasts. So I guess he is one of those keyboard warriors also. And, I said the other day I wasn't going to make my show about attacking Johnny Alite, but with all the stuff going on right now and the things he's been doing, especially turning down the MMA fight with that he was offered with Jimmy Calandra. And let me tell you why that really bothers me. So what he did is he went to a gym and he showed up with some promoter talking, and he said that he doesn't want to fight Jimmy Calandra and that he's not going to waste his time. And he's not going to even mention his name, but he would want to fight John Gotti Jr. He knows that fight will never happen. John Gotti Jr. will never fight him. Never. It ain't happening because he wouldn't want to give him that much of anything, that much press, even make it where people would even want to take him serious. There's nothing about Johnny Alite serious. And so what he said is he said this. He sat there with a promoter and he said that he wants to fight John Gotti Jr. and he wants his friend Beroni to fight John Gotti III. So let me explain something to you about Phil Beroni. Okay, John Gotti III, he's lost one fight. It was a very close fight. He's an up-and-comer, and he's a very good fighter. Why would John Gotti III want to fight Phil Beroni? It would make no sense for the simple fact that Phil Beroni has fought one time in the last 3 years. His record is 16 wins and 19 loses. This is a guy that Johnny Alite calls a legend. So he's 16 wins and 19 loses. He loses on a regular basis. If you look at his record, his last fight was a loss. He's lost 4 of his last 5 fights, and the fights were from 2012, 2014, 2018, and 2019. The guy is, if you want to know his age, he's 45 years old. So what good would it do John Gotti III to fight him? It would make no sense. It would be a stupid thing for him to do because one, John Gotti will most likely win the fight. This guy's an old man. And on top of that, the only time that he had any good quality fighting Phil Beroni was when he was admittedly on steroids. If you take a look at his body from back 5 years ago, 6 years ago, he was a monster. And then as soon as he stopped taking steroids, got more serious with steroids. He pretty much started walking away from the fight game. And he pretty much doesn't fight at all, right? Well, he's 45 years old. What's he going to do now? Have exhibitions. So these are two things that could never happen. John Gotti Jr. would never fight Johnny Alite in a ring. He wouldn't give him that pleasure. He wouldn't even want to be in the same ring with him. He wouldn't even want to touch him. And I can't say that I blame him. And I just wanted you to see what Beroni's record is and how silly this whole thing is that Johnny Alite is talking about. So, okay, let's get back to a couple other things. Now you have to understand that Johnny Alite was talking about how he knew so much about John Gotti Jr., and that's why he testified. When you're in the mafia, if you know a lot about somebody, they're not going to chase you away. If they figure you're a danger to them, you know what they're going to do to you. They're not going to chase you away. They're not going to smack you and chase you away. That's what John Gotti Jr. did to Johnny Alite. He smacked him around and told him to get lost. And that was that. That is how serious John Gotti Jr. took Johnny Alite. He basically smacked him around and he basically left. So, and also, I have a statement from John Gotti's daughter, Angel Gotti. And she wanted me to read it, so I'm going to do that. And also, which is, there is a website called JohnnyAliteFacts.com, JohnnyAlite.facts.com. If you go to that website, it will tell you everything that you need to know and put into question everything that Johnny Alite ever talks about, especially the fact with all his claims to all these murders he committed and stuff. And he beat 100 people with baseball bats and he shot 20 others. And it's like I said the other day, if you shoot 20 people, that means you're a really bad shot. I mean, if you shoot 20 people and they live, and then if you beat 100 people with baseball bats on different occasions, do you know how difficult it would be to find 100 people over a period of your life to beat up with a baseball bat? I mean, just that alone, if you listen to that, that is such an exaggeration. And this is how you know that what he's talking about is all BS. You know, since I've been doing this and since I've been talking about Johnny Alite, I've also been getting some threats. And I just want people to know that are threatening me. I don't care if you're threatening me. You don't scare me at all, especially if you're affiliated with Johnny Alite. Okay. I don't live in New York. I live in Texas. I'm not worried about you. This is the worst place the gang can't shoot straight could ever come. And that's what Johnny Alite is, him and his gang that can't shoot straight. And, you know, it might seem kind of harsh the way I'm coming down on him, but for him to go out there and throw this Phil Beroni crap at fighting John III and then challenging John Jr. is ridiculous. It's his way of backing out of fighting Jimmy Calandra. If you're so tough, you know, last week they were using, he just had a heart procedure and that he cannot fight. The only reason Jimmy Calandra accepted a fight with him was because he had a heart procedure. The reality is he had a heart procedure, yes. I'm sure he did. Okay, everybody has heart procedure. So if he cannot fight Jimmy Calandra, why is he saying that he wants to fight against John Gotti Jr.? It makes no sense. But if you look at anything that he's ever done, it's never made sense. And the most amazing thing is how easily people are taken in. You know, if you sit down and if you're a street guy, and most street guys really understand that Johnny Alite is lying about all this stuff. I heard a story where this gentleman took him in, Johnny Alite in, and it was to a church group. And during that church group, you know, Johnny Alite was, you know, trying to say that he was feeling better and he was going to change his life around and everything. And the next thing he knew, he started talking to the Costa Nostra News. And all of a sudden, these stories started coming out about what he did and how many murders he committed, how many baseball bat beatings he committed. You know, and then to say that you're better, and it's like I said, you know, you sell baseball bats on your website, you autograph them and give them to people because it's kind of you having fun with the fact that maybe you used to beat a lot of people up with baseball bats. To me, there's no doubt that Johnny Alite was probably a pretty tough guy and that could handle himself. But why would he say the things he's saying that don't make any sense? Think about it. Once again, John Gotti chases him in 1990, 91, around that time. I knew some members of the Gotti families through the 90s. Never did I ever hear this name, Johnny Alite. Never. Not one time. There's no pictures of him with John Gotti Jr. I'm sorry, with John Gotti. There's no doubt that he was with John Gotti Jr. John Gotti Jr. admits that himself. But he also says that he smacked him around and chased him away. And so I want to read this. This quote is from, I received today from Angel Gotti, and she asked me to read this for her. And I told her I would. And, usually I wouldn't get involved in stuff like this between people, but there's no doubt in my mind that this is a truthful story. And, I've been a hustler most of my life. I can sit back and watch hustling and see people hustling. It's not hard to tell hustling. The key to watching a hustler is this: if they talk fast and they continuously know their facts and they never screw up. It's like they program their brain and they continuously talk fast. And that's what they do. I mean, that's what they are. They're hustlers. They're street talkers. They're full of shit. Those are the guys that always get their asses kicked because everybody wants to kick their asses because they don't like them. Just because you have a good build and stuff doesn't make you a street fighter. People say, oh, look at Alite's body and look at the way that Jimmy Calandra looks. I don't know if anybody's seen the video when Jimmy Calandra was in, he went back to his place and there's this thug that got up with his girlfriend. The girlfriend threw coffee in his face. They were calling him names. And then Jimmy Calandra knocked the guy out with one punch. It doesn't matter that Jimmy Calandra doesn't have the body that Johnny Alite has. I mean, we've all seen guys that we would never think would kick someone's ass. And that's just the way it is. You can't tell. This is from Angel Gotti. I could tell you that my brother chased Johnny Alite away in 1991, slapped him, chased him. Why on earth would he give a punk rat freak show a platform? So basically what she's saying is John Gotti Jr. will not fight and do this ridiculous match that Alite's asking for because he'll be giving him a platform. And that makes perfect sense. A-Rat, she calls him A-Rat. I wonder why. But A-Rat knows this, and that's why he's using that as this fake challenge to my brother, because he's terrified of getting his ass kicked by Jimmy Calandra. And everyone knows it. Big surprise coming for that lion fraud. Everyone knows that when I say something, I mean it, and I'm not lying. So if I say something big is coming, something big is coming. And once again, she writes, you can say this again. John A-Rat never, ever, ever knew my father. That's why the government didn't have one piece of evidence that he was ever in my father's company, or my father ever even spoke his name, that little lying fraud. So basically, Robinism, this is kind of funny. Johnny Alite is outside Jimmy Calandra's house right now with a bat and has killed 12 dudes up the street from Jimmy Calandra's house. Just to keep busy while he waits. And then Jimmy Hamadi writes, why would Alite fight Calandra? His problem is with Junior. What does it say about Junior not accepting? The website is foolish and mostly innuendo. And I read this. You know why I read this? Because this is most likely one of Johnny Alite's guys. They come on like this, and that's basically what it comes down. So what we're getting here right now is you will get some Alite's people in here. These are the young people, the ones that think that he's some kind of god and they believe everything he says. And the reality, he's not. And then we'll get this silly statement right here. Angel Gotti has no clue who her father knew. Excuse me? Angel Gotti, like, lived in a house with her father? Why wouldn't she know who he knew? The Gottis were pretty close family. I mean, I knew people that knew the Gottis that I worked for. Everybody knew each other. So that definitely makes no sense. And this is Junior is a happy, out of shape older man. He does not pretend to be tough. You know what? That's what it comes down to. I mean, you get to a certain age in your life. You know, Johnny Alite is claiming that he just came off heart surgery and he wants to box. And let's face it, who wants to see, you know, even the fight between him and Jimmy Calandra, Jimmy only made that offer because he was being bullied by Johnny Alite and his young crew. And these guys that hang out with him, they believe everything he says. They believe it, but they don't look at the reality. The reality is this. If he knew all that stuff about John Jr. and John Jr. sent them away, and he knew about all these people that supposedly John Jr. killed, and then you had 4 or 5 people that came forward during the trial and said, and they turned state evidence, but they all said the same thing, that John Jr. didn't know about these murders. And so you had 4 guys that said that he didn't know about the murders. And then you have Johnny Alite, who was smacked around and chased away, saying that he did know about the murders. So that's your choice. You can believe he was such a bad witness in the John Gotti trial, the John Jr. trial, that when the trial was over, the jurors said that they didn't believe anything he said, and they honestly could not vote for him being guilty, because Johnny Alite actually was the best thing that ever happened to John Jr. during the trial. If they didn't put Johnny Alite up there, they may have found John Jr. guilty. So if anything, the government did John Jr. a favor by putting Johnny Alite on the stand. And I'm going to say this. I'm going to put this out there. I'm going to say directly to Johnny Alite. Why don't you just accept this challenge by Jimmy Calandra? Just accept it. What do you have to lose? You're saying that he was a bitch in jail, that you used to boss him around in jail, and he would do everything he said. So why don't you take it? What do you have to lose? You know, you yourself said you could beat him, no problem. You know, and to do this Phil Beroni thing, Phil Beroni, come on, really? You go out and you find the suckiest MMA fighter in the history of MMA to fight, to say John Jr. III should fight him. Come on, really? A 45-year-old MMA fighter with a 16-19 lifetime record. Do you know how hard it is to lose 19 fights in MMA and win 16? I mean, I'm surprised that he lasted that long. Basically, what that means is, that he, at this point in his career, wants to fight John Gotti III. I don't know if anybody's ever watched John Gotti III fight, but he's very entertaining. Has never been knocked out. And he lost his last fight. It was a very close decision that could have won either way. And from what I understand, he's going to be coming back soon. And what happened with everything happened with COVID. You know, as you know, what I noticed too, like Peter Hamad, I think this is probably one of John Alite's ex-lovers from jail. Who the fuck is Calandra? His problem with Junior. Why deflect? Okay. So what we have here, and this is when you know that you're having a good show, when you have all these people right now in here from the fan club of John Alite. They're all a bunch of young guys that believe everything he says. But, you know, if you are from the streets and you're an older guy and you know what a hustler is, I mean, it's a whole different thing. And, you just know what it is, when someone's hustling and whenever they're full of it. So, I'm going to take this show 30 minutes today, and I made this the John Alite show, but I also want you to know that come this Saturday at 8 p.m., my chat room will have monitors in there. And anybody like today with these pro Johnny Alite people coming in here, I call him Elite because he thinks he's an elitist. So basically what they're thinking right now is, Mike, I take that back. I think Elite is a punk. Okay, I appreciate that. I think a lot of people think that he is that way. And, and this is true too, Nikki. Elite called Jimmy a dangerous shooter in one video. Then when Jimmy doesn't go along with John Gotti's story, he says Calandra is a nobody punk. And that's true. But you know what really bothered Elite? The fact that Jimmy Calandra met Sammy Guevara. And listen, it doesn't matter what people think about Sammy Guevara. I even have my feelings about Sammy Guevara. But here's what it comes down to with Sammy Guevara. And anybody would say this, including the Gottis. Even though he ratted on the Gottis, the fact of the matter is that Sammy Guevara is a real mafiosa soldier. And he was a real killer. You cannot deny any of that stuff with Sammy Guevara. And you can't even put you can't even put Johnny Alite in the same breath as Sammy Guevara when it comes to being a gangster. One was a true gangster and one's not a gangster. And Johnny Alite might be the toughest guy in the world. He might be able to kick my ass and two other guys at one time. But that still doesn't mean that the stuff that he's putting out there is not lies. It is lies. Now, what I would tell you too, and this is important, if you go to right here, johnalitefacts.com. If you go to that website, there's a lot of stuff on there. And the author of this site, one thing he offers people the chance to prove his articles wrong. And he even says, if you could prove this wrong, send me the information, I'll take down what I put up. And the site is actually very well done. And if you go through the sites, it has court documents there. It talks about everything when it comes to Johnny Alite. I always, one thing that I can never understand, I've never met an individual where a few people like and so many hate. I mean, the people that don't like this guy is incredible. And another funny thing, that these guys who are like major rats, like Elite, you've got to remember, John Gotti Jr. on his website, he showed actually a stack of 302s that Johnny Alite did that affected 200 people's lives. Basically, he snitched on 200 people. Then people will say that John Gotti Jr. had a 302. He had a 302, but nothing that he said in that 302 ever affected a trial or ever was used. And remember that, our government, we see what they do. Now our government, our FBI is in the situation where they raid houses of 75-year-old men with 20 people, with 20 agents, 6 o'clock in the morning. So, we know what everything, it's the biggest mafia going. And, I'm not going to talk too much more about Johnny Alite. I really wanted to put a really good show out there today, just to give people an idea of where I'm coming from with Johnny Alite. Now, if people still think I'm full of shit and I have some kind of grudge, I don't have no grudge to Johnny Alite. None. Before I started this show, before I started any of this, I didn't even know who Johnny Alite was. Never even heard of him. I heard of lots of gangsters, but I never heard of Johnny Alite. But I noticed that he wrote some books, and he made sure that Gotti's name was in the books. And he wrote the books like the Gotti rules, let's say. He wrote the book like it was going to be about the Gottis and then their rules, but it was a book where he just bashed the hell out of them. If he can go around bashing people the way he does, why can't I go bash him? Why can't Jimmy Calandra bash him? If you're in the game of bashing, I mean, heck, you talk about your famous baseball bat, how you bash people. So you bash people all the time. So you got to be willing to take it back, Johnny Alite. If you're going to bash people, you're going to get bashed back. And your whole beef with Jimmy Calandra is because he actually met and did a show and was legitimized by Sammy the Bull Guarano. That is it. It's a jealousy thing. And then, you have all these guys getting out of jail now, and major rats getting out of jail and going to YouTube. And they got bodies all over the place, and they're going to YouTube. Hey, you can't blame them. I mean, it's there. They might as well take advantage of it. I want to talk about this Saturday. This Saturday at 8 p.m., Jimmy Calandra is going to join me, and it's going to be live questions and answers. So if you come into the chat room, you'll be able to ask Jimmy any kind of questions you want to ask him. You want to ask him mafia questions about his days on the street and stuff. He's a very exciting guy. That's why I got kind of disappointed when I hear Johnny Alite calling him a gnat, a nothing. The guy was on the streets. He made some bad mistakes. He did his time in jail, and the difference between Jimmy Calandra and Johnny Alite, Jimmy Calandra didn't have to change his name to pretend he was Italian. This guy literally changed his name so he would sound Italian. He basically took his heritage and pretended it didn't exist. And he comes from a great heritage, Johnny Alite. So you would figure, why would he be ashamed of his heritage? And why would he want to pretend he was Italian and not Albanian? That's another thing you got to ask about. He's an opportunist. There's no doubt he's an opportunist. I spent half my life as a hustler, and I was an opportunist. I know an opportunist when I see one. It's like right now, if you take what he's doing with challenging John Gotti to a fight. John Gotti Jr., he knows John Gotti's not going to take that fight, but he gets out there. He just wants to get out there in the news. And it's, it's amazing too, because these guys are all running around calling each other names and stuff. And you got a lot of these guys are nuts. Some of these guys are cold-blooded killers. It's only a matter of time before someone reaches out and hurts another person. I'm not in New York. If I was in New York, I wouldn't be doing this show. Because you don't know what you're going to be dealing with. I'm in a pretty safe place. I'm not worried about that. I got a lot of safe people around me that will keep me safe. But you have people in New York, and they're just fighting with each other, but going back and forth, and the things they're saying. And then you got guys coming out, everybody bragging about how many people they killed and what they did, literally bragging. If you listen to Johnny Alite, it's like one long brag. I did this. I killed 20 people. I beat up 100 people with baseball bats. I jumped over the Empire State Building. I stopped a truck with my left shoulder. This is what you hear. So I'm going to tell Johnny Alite, if you're going to be out there doing all this stuff, Johnny Alite, you're going to have to suffer the consequences when people say something back. And usually you're arguing with gangsters. I'm not a gangster. I've known gangsters. I've done some gangster stuff, but I'm not a gangster. So I'm just going to challenge you to Right now I got 51 people watching me. I can't believe it. I mean, that's pretty good. I feel kind of guilty if I end the show early when you have that many people watching your show. And also, if you look at how many people watch Johnny Alite, you're talking 60, 70,000 people watch his shows at a time. That means he's making really good money with his show. I don't know if people understand how Yahoo works. I'm sorry, YouTube, how YouTube works. But if you have good runtime, and once you get over 1,000 people, you start making a little money. Once you get to 10,000 people, you make good money. Once you get to 50, 60,000 people, you make great money. You know, and you make your money through the commercials. So the more shows that you have, the more you're going to make. And that's a lot. And this is a reason why a lot of these guys coming out of jail are doing these shows, because they're making really good money. And, you know, you can't blame them. Do you have that wrench yet, Cherry? I sent that to you. Let me know. Cherry's like my bodyguard. She protects. She'll be protecting me in the chat room from people coming in like they have been doing today. He's making peanuts. Well, you know, neutral drop. He's making peanuts at 160. See, that's not true. If you have 160 people, the reason you're making peanuts is because you probably have very low watch time. It's not hard to make money if you have long watch time. The key to making money with YouTube is watch time. And so I know this because I helped my son build up his station, and his station doesn't have a lot of subscribers, but he makes pretty good money because of his watch time. He has people watch for like 20, 30, 40 minutes. So if you're not making that much money with that, with 160K neutral drop, I would suggest to you that you really would want to consider getting people to stay on your shows for a longer amount of time. If they come in and they stay 1 or 2 minutes, you're not going to do much. But if you can get your viewers and give them good content, and you can get them to stay, then you do well. And that's just an opinion. I've learned a lot about YouTube in the last year and doing shows. And let me tell you something about me. I never expected that this was going to happen with me. I've gotten 300 subscribers in like 5 days. And I'll probably hit 1,000 by next week. And then it's going to go up and up. I was working with my son's station, and I decided to leave there because his content isn't what I wanted to do. And this is the content that I wanted to do. Upset crazy people that say they beat people up with bats. It makes me kind of foolish, doesn't it? Okay, let's see. Robinson says, you can put air freshener on pig shit, but it's still pig shit. Let's say Johnny was being honest. What's that mean exactly? It means he's still garbage, lacking every quality he claims to have. Yes, basically, if he's saying that he killed 5 people, well, with Johnny Alite, one day he's killed 2 people in his life. The next day he's killed 30. So you don't know with Johnny Alite. So one thing about Sammy Guevara, we know Sammy Guevara killed 19 people. There's no doubt. Sammy Guevara names them, goes into the murders, exactly who was assassinated. And Johnny Alite's all over the board. You don't know what to believe with the guy. And neutral, it's $1,500 per month. All channels are different. My watch time is decent. Well, I'm glad to hear that, neutral. And if you're making $1,500 a month, hey, that's $1,500 a month that you weren't making. That's not bad, you know. It's and you can always develop your station and make your station bigger, and that's it. And if you have that many viewers, God bless you. You must be doing something right. Okay, Nikki says Alite in the book, in his book on how in 1986 John Gotti Sr. sent Alite, an unmade Albanian non-Italian kid in his 20s, to demote the respected elderly consigliere of the Gambino family. Think about that. So Nikki, I appreciate you making that clear. You're saying that An Albanian guy was sent to basically tell a Italian consigliere that he's no longer in that position. Is that basically what you're trying to say? That alone, shows you how full of shit he is. I mean, that's what it comes down to. And then Nikki says, how do people believe this clown? Robinsism. And I got 8 views this month before last and still ain't got no YouTube checks. Robism, Robson. When he first started, I was weary of him, but as I got to know him, he's actually quite a funny person, and I enjoy reading his comments. And then he says, wait, maybe what John means is bats like balls that fly around at night. He may even count accidental bumps due to nature. That's right. Maybe he is counting when he plays stickball and he hits a tennis ball. That is like a beating. Not crazy, just want the truth. That's what Richard says. And Boston Jay says, this is one of my fellow Boston people. Cola Lair was getting the spider monkey, got crunched. I don't know what you mean by that, Boston. So I don't know where to go on that one. Okay, damn. Finally, some questions that make lots of sense. Mafia equals Italian. Okay, neutral drop. Back in the day, Johnny's rep was legendary. Most stuff heard on the street back then is when he was saying, what he's saying now, just saying I'm not sticking up for him. He does exaggerate. Okay. And Cherry, thank you. And I like to thank everybody that showed up at this show today, because of the fact that there's quite a bit here. And I'm going to tell you what I'm going to try to do on my shows. I'm going to try to do 5 or 6 shows a week and put out good content. And I'm going to try to interview people. I'm working right now. And there's a very good chance that, I got Jimmy Calandra coming this Saturday, and then I have a Gotti family member coming that I'm working on right now, and they're gonna come on this show, but they're gonna wait for something to happen. Something's pretty big about to go down, and it's not going to be too good for Johnny Alite, from what I understand. I don't know what it is, but that's the word on the street, as they would say. But nowadays, it's not on the street. That's the word. That's the world. That's the word online. So the streets have gone from online. And Robson, look, dude, I'm just playing. I like your channel. Just don't respect dudes that feed on weaker people, robs them, and that's true. And that's what Johnny, you got to remember, this whole thing with Jimmy Calandra and Johnny Alite started when Johnny Alite said that Jimmy was a punk in jail. He said that Jimmy smacked John Gotti in jail. If you smack a boss, or if you smack someone of his stature back in the day, you're dead. That's just the way it is. You don't do it. A matter of fact, Jimmy Calandra tells the story of a good friend of his that smacked a made man. And his friend was a very tough guy, but what happened is once he smacked that made man, he was dead within a couple days. Just like that. So this is what doesn't make sense. He's bragging, John Alite's bragging that he sent people to smack John Gotti around, and that he used to threaten John Gotti, and that even he smacked John Gotti around. I mean, come on, people. Why would anybody believe that? That just doesn't make sense. I mean, okay, Mikey D says, somewhere between the baseball batting and the 50 murders, Alite claims is a little truth. Yes, there's no doubt that Johnny Alite, I don't even know what to call him, elite. He thinks he's elite, so maybe elite. But Johnny Alite, there's no doubt he's done some things in his life, some things that none of us would ever have guts to do. There's no doubt about that. But when you take the things you've done and you go run with it and you expand it, and you say that you did that much more, And then it gets to the point where you tell so many stories that you're all over the place with your stories. I mean, anybody on this show or anybody on the internet can go check Johnny Alite's stories, check them from one interview to another interview. And what do you see during those interviews? You see that the stories change. I mean, one minute he's saying, actually, he said that he went to court, said he murdered 5 people. But then in court it came, I didn't murder the people, but the people did it on my orders. First of all, an Albanian's not going to be ordering Italians to kill people. It's just not going to happen. And don't get me wrong, one of the worst things that ever happened to the mafia was when they started letting everybody into the mafia. They started even making people that weren't even Italian. And so it became like a game, and nobody could be trusted. And everybody was snitching on one another. And now it's at the point now, anytime someone gets busted, they know that if they say the right stuff, they're going to get out of jail within a couple of years. A lot of stuff they say doesn't even have to be true. All you got to do is say somebody committed a murder or somebody did something, and the FBI is going to give you a get out of free jail card. But yet you have guys that have been got caught dealing weed 20 years ago, and they're still in prison. You know, when you really think about that, how many people are in prison for 20 years because they got caught for a third time dealing a small amount of cocaine? And then you have these mass murderers going to jail, literally mass murderers, serial killers. And they're getting out of jail because the government's making deals with them. I mean, it's to the point of insanity. And so a lot of guys on the streets, they don't care. They know that if they get busted and if they're a low-level hood, and Johnny Alite was a low-level hood. He wasn't what he says he was. And so he just propped himself up. He gave them as many murders as he could in his head. And the FBI was there. Wow, this guy's giving us all this information. This is great stuff. And what happens? They run with it. And then they put some, it's always after one person. But, it's really sad, too, because, I had a Gotti family member tell me that, their father died with a handcuff on his arm. And they didn't care. They kept the cuffs on him, and that's how he died. And he was willing to go that far. Do people not think that John Gotti could have come out when he was in jail and said, can you imagine the people that he could have flipped? He could have said, look, put me in medium security for the rest of my life, and I'll flip. And he would take down business people. I mean, people, God knows what kind of people he would take down. He would take down corrupt police departments. And it would that's just the way it would be. Neutral Drop. Neutral Drop says that, I'm sorry, my phone there, I took care of it. Neutral Jimmy seems like a straight shooter. I like the guy. That's what a lot of people say about Jimmy Calandra. He is a straight shooter. I've gotten to know him, and he's a very straight shooter. And if you want to ever go to his Instagram is private, so he's going to have to decide who he lets in. But he has I've seen some fantastic pictures of him meeting with Sammy Gravano. God knows where they were. And that's what makes me laugh, because you have Johnny Alite trying to delegitimize who Jimmy Calandra was, who he is. But Jimmy Calandra is like laughing that he's having coffee with Sammy Gravano in his boxing shorts. And they're going out to restaurants and they're having meals, and he spends a few days with them. See, and it's like I said, I think that's really bothers Johnny Alite, because Johnny Alite wanted to meet with Sammy. And whether you like Sammy or not, this whole thing on the internet with the stories coming out, these mafiosa stories, Sammy's the one that really brought it to another level. Because let's face it, he's by far got the #1 show like that, and he's a total business guy from what I understand. As we know, he killed some of his business partners. So the only thing is, I don't think you want to become his podcast buddy. But anyway, when you think about that, where they are, and where Sammy is, let's say he's 74 years old. I mean, you have this one guy coming out right now and challenging Sammy, saying, "I want to meet you in Central Park, and here's the day." And I'm thinking to myself, this dude is like 40, 45, and he wants to meet Sammy in Central Park, who's 74, and he has Graves' disease. So that's not going to happen. So all these challenges going around from these one stations to the next. There's another station. There's a guy that works on the show with Johnny Alite, and he was talking about how he wants to straighten his life out and how he's changed as an individual. But then you read in the newspaper that he beat up his girlfriend or wife's family. So these guys, most of them are full of shit. I just want to have a better life. I want people to forgive me. If you kill people, you're psychotic. You're nuts. I mean, you don't just become a better person overnight if you're a killer. You don't just stop killing. It's who you are. It's part of your illness. I mean, that's the funny thing. These guys get here like, "Oh, I regret what I did." And sure, see, that's the difference. Jimmy Calandra had one person get hurt very badly or die. And he talks about that, and he's very serious about that. And it was a horrible incident. And I really believe that he really, really is very sincere. And I do not believe that with Johnny Alite, because when he talks about it, all he does is talk about how many people he beat up, who he killed, when he killed them, and how he killed them. And it's like a bragging coming out of his mouth, even though they don't. Okay, so I heard Greg Scarpa ratted out Sonny Franchise and contributed to Sonny going back to prison. Not only that, I heard the story about when Greg Scarpa and his father, they killed this girl, and when the girl went to see them, the son pushed the head down and the father shot her in the head, and that's the Scarpas. So, that's very sick people. And as a matter of fact, I believe some of those family members are on, right now are on YouTube, and people are listening to them, and they're saying they are ashamed of what they did and they want to straighten out their life. If you are a mass murderer, you're not ashamed of what you did. You're a mass murderer. Okay, Robeson says, John Gotti was one of the last real Costa Nostra. You get 100 years, lay down, do your time, you never bend. That's John Gotti Sr. I don't mean me, shit. We get caught stealing gum. I'm telling everything. Yeah, so we know Robson, if you're his friend and you're with him and you get busted, say at Walmart, he's giving you up. There's no doubt he's giving you up. Max Powers, all of this mob guys are rats and assholes. Neutral Drop, he didn't want that woman to die on that robbery. Yes, you're right, Neutral Drop, it was a horrible thing. I actually talked to him about it, and it was just, gosh, talking about being at the wrong place at the wrong time. I mean, you're a young kid and you're in the streets like that. And let's face it too, you have to remember, Johnny Alite came from a good family, and then he decided to hang around John Gotti Jr. and become his friends, weight lift, work on their bodies. You see pictures of them together when they're young. And John Alite has always been an opportunist. He knew who to hang out with. He wanted to become a wannabe gangster, and he said, well, I'll become friends with John Gotti Jr., and I become a gangster. And you know, it's kind of funny. He's laughing all the way to the bank, unless he's blowing his money. And let's face it, gangsters do blow their money on gambling and everything else. But it's obvious if he's blowing his money for the amount of business he's doing on YouTube right now and stuff, he doesn't deserve to have any money. But, you know, he's making money hand over fist if he's doing this whole thing proper. And that's another thing why I like Jimmy Calandra so much. He's a lot like me. We have our computers, we have our cameras. Behind me, there's a sign that says baseball is life. You know, and I'm an avid baseball fan. I love baseball. But this is my studio. My studio is nothing special. You know, I'm not, you know, when Johnny Alite got his studio, he had money behind him, and they probably put $20,000, $30,000 into a studio. And when you have a studio like that and you have all the equipment, the mics, the cameras, it's a lot easier to become successful with what you have. And that's what happened. Mike D says, Larry Mazza ran with Scarpa and his wife, and Scarpa didn't care. Yeah, well, yeah. And you know what? Whether you like Larry Mazza or not, Larry Mazza seems to be the real deal. He's done some pretty, you know, I would be more intimidated by Larry Mazza than most of these other guys. Let me put it that way. He just has that look where he looks like he's done some shit in his life, but he also looks like he's, you know, if he's done the murders that he claims to have done, there's no way he could be better. You know, that's the thing that makes me laugh, that people that say, you know, they have like 10 murders and, well, I feel sorry about everything. And, you know, I want my life to be good now and all forgiven and stuff. But that's not how it works. If you kill 10 people in your life, you are if not a serial killer, you are a spree killer. And there's no way that you're just going to get better. You can't get better. You know, you've killed all those people. It's impossible. It just doesn't happen. Okay, then Robinson says, Robson. I keep calling you wrong name, Robson. I apologize about that. We've all done shit we're not proud of. We've all made mistakes. If a person's sincerely changing, shouldn't they be afforded that chance? Frauds exposed themselves. You Robson, I agree with you, but if you killed more than one person, I guess we have the one person rule. I don't think you really should be forgiven. I mean, if you kill 2, 3 people, you got to remember when a gangster gets killed, you have to remember that gangster has family. They have people at home waiting for them to come home that night, and they never come home. And you can't, I've actually had people say to me, oh, well, they knew what he was. They knew what could happen. Like the family didn't really matter. You know, when a family loses members, it doesn't matter how you lose your family member. If he was a gangster and he dies and gets killed in the street, it's still sad. If you're a 7-year-old boy and your dad gets killed and he's a gangster, you know, it's still a horrible thing. And that's the life they choose when they choose that. Robson says, oh shit, you bat 20 dudes in a day too. That's what's up. Yep, 20 days. I tell you what, Johnny Alite just ran around batting people, even innocent people. I mean, to get 100 people with baseball bat, you got to just go on a tear. Cherry, thank you all for being here. Please remember to hit the like button. Please hit, if you like this, please hit the like. I could use some subscribers too. I was told by somebody that I should be at 1,000 people at the pace I'm going pretty quickly. So I hope I am. And I hope I didn't hurt nobody's feelings. I hope I didn't hurt any gangsters' feelings. But if you killed a lot of people, you're a mass murderer and you shouldn't be on YouTube. I'm sorry. Okay. Matthew Soretti says, John Alite acts like he's still connected and you could tell he wishes he still was. He has an ego problem and his little puppet gene is in the way. is the same way. Yeah, you're talking about, I can't think of his last name, but the guy that's with him. It's funny. I had Jimmy Calandra, he described it best. He said to me that these guys that rat and they get out of jail, they all think they're the same rank still. So if you were a concierge, if you were a lieutenant or captain, they still get out and all the rats meet and hang out. And they all still act like they're gangsters. They literally think they're still gangsters and they still got their ranks. So it's like nothing to them. Okay, I'm going to go out and rat, but the reality is they're not accepted in the street and stuff, but they still think they are. And they'll get on bragging about what they are, what rank they are, and how great they are. But the reality is that they're rats. And I'm not talking about the guy that made that one simple deal. I'm talking about the guy that just put all his friends away. And then he comes out. And people can say whatever they want. People say, oh, John Gotti Jr. signed a 302. Nobody, like I said, nobody ever went to jail because of John Gotti Jr. There's no cases anywhere where that pops up. And that's what Johnny Alite doesn't get. Nothing's more annoying to me than hearing Johnny Alite calling people rats. I mean, he's just calling people rats. It's like, dude, you signed enough 302s to put 200 people away, or attempted to. And the only reason he didn't put them away because jurors didn't believe him. So think about this. Jurors don't know the mafia. They don't know the code, or they don't understand how that works. And none of these people believed him. He never put nobody away with his testimony. Then he was sentenced to 10 years and he got out in like a year. What the hell's going on there? And this is right after the trial with John Gotti Jr. And they sent him back to jail, and a year later he's out. Even though he's sentenced to 10 years. Something's just not right. Okay, Paul says, Alite saying he was sitting there waiting for Castellano. Oh, that was funny, wasn't it? To go down because he knew it was going to happen. Tells you everything you need to know about the man. Yes, and I discussed this on one of my shows. So basically what he did, and just for people that don't know, John Alite basically said that he went over a friend who was associated with the Lucchese's. He went and stayed at that friend's house and stood by the phone to wait to hear that Castellano hit was happening. Sammy Gravano himself said that only a few people knew. Sammy Gravano said that people that knew about the hit were the people involved and a handful of other people. So I'm guessing that what Johnny Alite is trying to tell you is that he was one of those people, a non-Italian Albanian that did not know John Gotti Sr. or was never caught on tape. I don't know if you guys remember when John Gotti, what brought down John Gotti is when he started talking a lot on tape, and they bugged an apartment of an old woman's house above, I believe it was the Raven Night, I may be wrong there, was above a social club. And he started talking and talking and talking. He was arguing and talking, and that's what Sammy Gravano got angry about, because on those tapes, John Gotti Sr. said that you didn't want to be partners in a business with Sammy Gravano because he killed all his partners. It was true, he does, but you can't blame Sammy for being upset when he heard the tapes. I mean, he was pretty upset. And that just changed the whole thing. It makes you wonder if he never heard that tape, and if he did not testify against John Gotti, would John Gotti have beaten those charges, and would Sammy have beaten those charges, and would they have gotten out? That's the question. I think that they probably would have beat the charges, but the government knows what they're doing. They know exactly what to do. Okay, so Han says, that's true. There is business, and then there is business that becomes personal. Exactly. Roman says first-degree murder with witness. You get 30 days to get your fears in order, and then ride the lightning. Yes. And then Philip Russell says, Alite also single-handedly planned and carried out the same Valentine's Day massacre. I heard about that, Phil. Yes, he did. He was involved. A matter of fact, no one knows how he was involved, but they know that somehow he was involved with the St. Valentine's Day massacre. And Nikki is laughing his ass off about it. Mike D says, best thing you could do for your channel, separate the lies from the truth. A lot of guys just want to take sides. Yep, that's true. And, that's what I'm not going to do here. I'll give you an example. I know people that like Sammy Gravano. I just think what Sammy Gravano did is very questionable. But the fact of the matter about Sammy Gravano is he was a real gangster. He doesn't have to pretend he was a gangster. He was a gangster. And that's that on that, Sammy Gravano. Okay, Nikki says there was only 5 guys who knew about the Castellano hit, and the hit team found out who they were going to kill on the day of the hit. Alite is completely delusional. But isn't there a chance that Johnny Alite's the one that put that all together too at the age of 23? 23 and full of steroids. You don't think that possibly maybe he put it together? Okay, so next one is Nikki of Newark. Alite was behind Bay of Pigs invasion and the CIA plot to assassinate Fidel Castro. Okay, well, listen, this show's been going for an hour. I had a great time today, and I appreciate people for showing up, and we have 74 people watching right now, which is very impressive, by the way. And I hope that when I put my shows out that there's more people here. And if you're going to threaten me, I'm just going to erase, I've had several people threaten me already. So I'll just erase what you say and report you to YouTube, even though YouTube's not going to do crap, but I'm still going to report you. So, and Billy Malone says, Calandra is not afraid of Alite. You know something? After you see Calandra land that punch on that guy at that Dunkin' Donuts, I don't think he's afraid of him. He knows how to throw a punch. Okay. Frankie Calabria said, sorry, caught you lately. Watch if you keep it up. And I will. And I appreciate you coming in. And the great thing about YouTube is, if you don't see my live show, you can always watch it at any time. But the one thing I promise is my shows will always be live. And the reason I do them live, because you never know what's going to happen. The easiest thing for people to do is to do a show, and then when they're done with the show, they put it to the cutting board and cut off the pieces they don't want to leave there. So if I mess up during my show, there's nothing I could do to come back on it. It just stays there. And and plus it saves me work. I'm too lazy to be cutting up a show I do. I really don't want to get involved with it. I'll read a couple more quotes before I take off here. Damian Trite says, why don't we talk about the time that John Alite was slapped and chased out of the strip club by Albanians in Queens? Yes, we should talk about that. But you know what? If the Albanians smack you, you better get out. Albanians are some badasses. Let me tell you something. I remember my brother. He was dating this Albanian girl in Yonkers. And he was at the mall, and they found him there, and there was like 30 of them. And he had to run through all these businesses, like for a couple hours, avoiding the Albanians that were looking for him. And I remember him calling me on the phone and saying, Lee, I'm here at the mall. These Albanians are looking to kill me. And I said, what did you do, Tom? He goes, well, I fucked one of their sisters. And I was like, well, that was my brother, Tom. He's no longer with us, but that's my brother, Tom, back in the days. He would just screw anything that moves, and sometimes he almost paid with his life. Joey Ben says, Alite left his parking meters and his $35,000 in debt to get out of there and dodge the fight. Okay, so you're saying that he's paying money to dodge fights? Okay. Okay, so John Alite, if you watch this show, I'm going to get a lot of views on this show, probably a couple thousand easy right off the bat. So most likely you're going to hear about this show, John Alite. I'm just going to say to you, be a man. Accept Jimmy Calandra's challenge. Don't use the excuse that we're keyboard warriors and that I can guarantee you one thing, dude. I'm no keyboard warrior. I know how to use keyboards not that well. I've lived a life and I've done some things in my life. And I'm the furthest thing in the world from a keyboard warrior. And same goes with Jimmy Calandra. Jimmy Calandra spent several years in state prison doing a hard time. He has hundreds of pictures of his time hanging out with all the gangsters in jail. So you can't call him a liar. If anything, you owe him an apology for trying to belittle him. And this is how this whole thing started, with him challenging you. I think what happened to you is that you seen that video when he knocked that guy out with one punch. And that was on National Geographic, I believe. So maybe that's the reason you don't want to fight him, but you want to, say horrible things about him. So maybe, maybe the best thing to do here, John, is just apologize to him and tell him, look, you're a gangster. You really are a gangster, and I shouldn't have said that. And I'm a wannabe gangster, because I'm not Italian, even though I pretend I was Italian, even though I changed my name to act like I was Italian. Remember that? Oh, Kumo. Kumo has been one of my son's viewers for a long time, and now he's been coming to my station. Kumo, I appreciate you coming. The good thing is that you can sit down and watch this from the beginning. I did not expect to go an hour and 6, but I had so many people here today that, Cherry, can you believe how many people that's here right now watching this video? I mean, it's pretty impressive. Don't tell Zod. I was joking with my son. I told my son that when I came and had my station, that within, because he's already monetized and stuff, I told him that within a couple of weeks I'll catch up to him and pass him. And he says, "No way, Dad." I'm starting to think that I'm going to do that. So that's the whole thing that's kind of funny about it. Okay. Well, everybody, look for comments from Rob Sim on Alite's channel. They are classic. I will look for them. Everybody, once again, thank you so much for showing up at my show today. I'll be putting out as many videos as I can, and I'll try to make them where they're worth watching. I just felt really good about doing today's show. And believe me, if I thought that Johnny Alite was the badass that he claims to be, and he's still a high caliber gangster, I wouldn't be here talking shit about him, because I know some gangsters. If you talk shit about them, you'd be dead. But you can't just become a gangster because you want to become a gangster. Well, I'm going to say goodbye to everybody now, and Joey Alite was associated with that clown Hootie. That says it all. Hootie is a BS artist who claims to have been in boss meetings as a 7-year-old. Okay, Krummel, it wasn't short. You got to watch my show from the very beginning. Okay, please let me know what you think of it. Cherry, thank you. Let me know if you get that wrench. I put you down for it today. And I really need your help on Saturday for when Jimmy Calandra is here doing his show. Everybody take care. Thank you all so much. Please like my show, and please subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. I really appreciate it. And I'll put a really good content for everybody. And as each time goes on, I'll improve each show, and I'll improve my studio and really make it nice. But everybody take care. You all have a good night. Thank you.